Okay, here we go. Let's hit the music. Hey, hello everybody. It is 4 o'clock again. Here we are on the Friday before Christmas. Hope everybody's doing okay. We have a very special guest that I want to bring on board soon here. I want to tell you that this is I believe, our fourth broadcast, and today we have a very special guest. It's Will Allen, and Will Allen is from Concept 360 Property Management in Long Beach. I want to say hello to the folks out there, Will.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. I really appreciate you. I know we've been kind of touching base back and forth and finally got to connect, but I'm so happy that you're able to meet with us here today. I know that, it can be very hectic with all the things going on in the holidays, but
Well, this was supposed to be my wife's slot.
right.
She had her appendix removed, so I'm sort of sitting in for her today, but I think I can bring it home.
Okay, I might have to ask for proof because I just want to make sure that Robin's not trying to avoid me for some reason and going to a big extent. But I really appreciate both of you are going to be at our FIBI meeting in Long Beach on January 25th, and you're going to be talking about the title of the talk is called Efficient Property Management for Your Rentals. Now, Will, tell me a little bit about your background and how you arrived in this whole property management space.
Well, actually, as a young man, 15 or 16, my dad had a friend that owned about 500 units. My dad was a doctor. He had a friend that owned 500 units. And he said, "Do you think your son would like to go out and do some work?" And my dad said, "Of course he would." So he had me spackle and paint, and I used to go turn units when I was a high school kid.
Wow.
And then after that, I ended up getting a degree in finance and management from Loyola Marymount.
Okay.
And found myself as an apartment broker with Marcus and Millichap.
Okay, wow. So I think an important part of this conversation is what kind of car did you have when you were in high school doing this job?
I had a blue Chevy Vega.
Wow.
I put a tarp down inside there so that I wouldn't get paint on it, and I loaded it all up, and they sent me to Burbank and
Oh my gosh.
Hawaiian Gardens and all over the place, turning units for them.
So you grew up in Long Beach, right? You're a Long Beach native.
I did. I left a few times and lived a few other places.
Uh-huh.
Ended up coming back and raising a family here.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, and we were briefly chatting about the changes that have happened in Long Beach just in the last decade or so. So you've witnessed some of the things. What do you see going forward in Long Beach? I mean, what are you kind of seeing as far as where the development's happening and kind of trends that you're aware of?
Well, there's a lot of gentrification going on now in downtown Long Beach, and most people know of Belmont Shore, which was a pretty nice place if you're young. There's another kind of a hipster place on 4th Street, and between 4th Street and downtown, people are buying up apartments. I mean, and the rents are going up. They're building a new $500 million city hall downtown.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
So there's a huge influx of jobs. Jobs drive rents, and so people are buying up apartments and turning them over.
Wow. Yeah, it's exciting what's happening out there. Now, kind of back to your career path, I remember you were mentioning that you were a broker with Marcus Millichap. So you kind of saw things from the investor standpoint as well, right? So you were serving the investors and trying to understand what makes them tick and what helps them.
Well, it sort of taught me what makes a deal a deal. I mean,
right.
They all look good. Some of them look good on paper, but you got to go out and walk them and kick the tires and, check out the tenant profile. Where is the building, the location, all kinds of things affect whether it's going to be a good investment or a stinker. And so you got to go out and figure that out. So during that period of time, I'd spun off to open my own firm with a partner. And I said, "Hey, I've got some experience in property management. Let's start a property management company alongside of our brokerage, because a lot of people don't want to manage the properties. They like to have the investment, but they don't want to be a landlord. They want to be an investor." So we started a property management company. Actually, at our zenith, we had about 1,600 units under management.
Wow.
And then when the crash came, he wanted to take the brokerage side, and I took the management side. And That's sort of been, you know, and Robin, this is Robin's company. I live and work in her world.
Gotcha.
But we have this company, and we have now about 500 units under management.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the spectrum of clients that you serve. Are serving both kind of institutional level clients as well as kind of your garden variety, starting investor or maybe investor that's accumulated, a good sized portfolio?
Yeah, it runs the gamut. I mean, some people, we've got some doctors on board, and they really just want communication is the key.
Right.
Some of them don't want to communicate that much, and some of them, we have other people that maybe there's their first investment, and it's a house.
Yeah.
They want to talk to us 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
So, and we have other people that they only buy houses, and they own 10 or 15 houses, and that's sort of their product type.
Mm-hmm.
We got other people that pick, they want to do larger apartment buildings. So everybody kind of finds a different investment that suits them, and we help work with them.
You've probably seen a lot of people maybe move up the ranks where they started with single family home and then they've said, maybe I want to try, much larger buildings. So you have kind of the best of both worlds. You know what that takes to transition, et cetera. And, there is a difference, right, between managing a single family home tenant versus an apartment tenant in many ways.
Yeah, it's night and day.
Yeah.
And, if you're doing units, you want to have a few more than 2 or 3 at the property so that there's some economies of scale. But many people, especially in today's world, a lot of people are buying houses, and there's no rent control in houses. Parts of LA County, that's an issue.
Right.
You can buy a rent control property, and it sounds good on paper till you really get into it and figure out you're sort of capped out.
Yeah, that theme comes up again many times where we talked about how, a deal looks great on paper, but many deals are lost when they aren't managed correctly because, the biggest Achilles heel of management is the turnover. And you spoke a lot on those points. Why don't you give a little wisdom on that about turnover?
Well, the most expensive thing I think for any owner, and whether you own a house or you own a 20-unit apartment building, is the turnover when somebody moves out. And because if they could have been there just for 3 months and didn't pay their rent or something like that, you still got to go through the same cost and the lost opportunity cost of the rent. So the key is really the selection process. You've got to pick the right tenants to move into your property, and they've all got to work in harmony with the other people there. Whether it's a single-family home, they've got to work well in the neighborhood, or whether it's a 20-unit building where you've got a certain tenant profile that you want to make sure everybody gets along and they're in harmony, so that the property works, and so that it's not sucking the life out of you every month.
Right. Yeah, because when you have a bad situation and if management is not, a strong suit, those deals can turn pretty sour pretty quickly. And I'm sure that, an investor that has a solid company like yourself behind them, they know, hey, I know that Will can turn this around and make this perform properly.
Well, if you buy a piece of property, and we were talking just briefly about it, but we just got selected by an owner that picked up a 7-unit property in Long Beach. And, it looked good on paper, but there were, of the 7, only 2 were paying rent.
Oh, gosh.
We had 2 squatters on the property.
Okay.
And there was some deferred maintenance. There's a lot of deferred maintenance.
Okay, now give me the bad news.
Yeah. The bad news is I got to go there and kick the squatters out.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
But, I mean, that's part of the process, but this is sort of a first-time investor. It looked good on paper. Right. But it's going to take a minute or two to get the thing singing like it's supposed to. It's going to take a little while to get the thing spinning like a top.
Right. Well, gosh, I can't imagine when if somebody was a new investor and they had to deal with like two squatters and all the number of things that you have to deal with when we're dealing with things that aren't kind of textbook, right? These are things that are kind of outside the norm. You have to have a certain temperament, and as an investor, one of the things I realized is that some people are cut out for management and some people are not. And let's talk a little bit about some of the dangers of not being a well-educated manager, like fair housing, et cetera. What are some of the things that you protect your clients from?
Well, I think you touched on it a little bit. People take it personally if people aren't paying the rent. Right. And there's people out there that it's a hobby for them to not pay rent and to get into they get themselves into someplace and they stay as long as possible.
Right.
I've worked with owners that show up, they'll show up on a Sunday night and be banging on the windows and the doors.
Oh gosh,
And
not a good idea.
short of almost being, they'll they could retaliate physically, which is something that they need to worry about.
Yeah.
But fair housing will come down on you real hard.
Yeah.
So you have to notice them at the right time. You've got to give them 24 hours if you want to get inside their unit.
Right.
You've got to do things properly to protect yourself. And I understand why people take it personally sometimes, because it's their it's their business.
Right.
But you can't take it. You've got to. This is professional, not personal.
Yes.
So we treat tenants with respect and dignity.
Right.
But you've got to be firm too. You've got to lay down the law and let them know how it's going to go.
Yeah, one of the things that we chatted about as well as because of your many years and all of your staff, the years of experience they have with the most important process of this is the screening of a tenant. Obviously you have to follow fair housing rules, but there's also some instincts that you have when you need to follow up on background checks and things like that keep a lot of novices out of trouble. Tell us a little bit about kind of your perspective and philosophy when you're doing a tenant screening or your company does a tenant screening.
Well, because of fair housing laws, everybody gets a fair shot.
Right.
But you have to be able to ask the proper questions.
Right.
You've got to make the phone calls. You've got to call their employer. You've got to call their last landlord. If they don't give you their last landlords, then there's a few red flags. When you say, well, when would you like to move in? Tomorrow. Can we move in tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, that's a red flag that something's not good.
Urgency is not a good sign in this situation.
It's not always good. It's not always a good sign.
Right.
So especially if they won't give you their past land. Sometimes I've driven by their home or the residence where they're at now, their current residence.
Right.
I'll knock on the door and say, hey, listen, we forgot to fill out this piece of paper here. I need your signature.
Right.
That way they open up their doors and I can see how they're living.
Right.
This isn't. You can't. We're not doing this. It has to be framed in such a way.
Right.
So that it meets fair housing guidelines. The easiest way to prevent yourself from going through the turnover is to put the right people in place at the given time.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, Will, you're talking about some of the hot topics that are out there for tenancy because there's so many changes year to year. I know when I go to an apartment association event, they're always talking about, oh, here's some new rule changes, and it's really tough if you're an investor to keep up with, to wear both hats, wear the investor hat and wear the management hat.
Right.
So what are some of the hot topics that you're running into out there in the tenant landscape?
The biggest one lately is companion animals or service animals.
Service animals.
Unfortunately, people can go online and they can get a certificate that says this is a companion animal.
Right.
If they have a true companion animal or service dog or pet, I've had people come in and say they have a service snake that's there to calm their heart and their so they can go online and they can get a certificate that says that's true.
Right.
But they're not always true. So we have, there's a pet screening site that will, on our website, if they're going to apply, they have to register their pet at this, and it's a national registry. The national registry then checks to make sure it's really a legitimate service animal.
Okay.
If it is, you've got to honor that.
Okay.
If it's not, you can say, we've done some research, and this is a fraudulent document. There's ways that you can write into a lease, because a dog will show up 6 months later, and then they have the certificate, and it wasn't in the lease when you first started it. So you can write some things into the lease about, should a pet show up, a surprising pet show up, you forfeit your entire deposit. You can write some other language in there to protect you as an owner, to dissuade them from breaking the lease, essentially.
Good pieces of advice there. Why don't you take me kind of through a path where, say I'm a new investor. I've tried to manage my stuff for a while, and I come to you, and we're sitting down, and what are some of the some of the best questions for a prospective client to ask you? Important questions to ask you, or just any management company.
Yes.
What would you suggest?
You want to see first of all, how long is the term of the contract?
Okay.
Because I've had people come to me and say, review my contract, I want to get out of this agreement, and they've signed a 3 to 5 year agreement. They didn't really look at the fine print, but they signed an agreement that's way, way, way too long.
Uh-huh.
We usually sign a 3-month agreement because in the first 3 months you need to, and then it goes monthly. It can be canceled within 30 days.
Okay.
The other thing I would really caution people against is signing an agreement that does not have a preset spending limit, meaning that they can spend whatever they can from the proceeds each month. They can do maintenance, and they can do repairs, and they can do all kinds of things. So most good companies have a preset spending limit of like $500. If it's any more than $500, you've got to get the approval, and that's a project that you're doing together in concert with the management company and the owner.
Right.
So that those kinds of things, there's no surprises. At the end of the month, you should know what your remittance is going to be before you get it. The other thing I would recommend if somebody that owns units is to review your expenses on a per unit basis.
Okay.
Because I've walked units with people before, and I would recommend walking. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if you review the expenses on a per unit basis, you can say, well, how did we spend $5,000 in this 1-bedroom apartment? What do they do here?
Yeah.
And then you can ask to see the unit and see that the carpet hasn't been replaced in 10 years. The blinds were shot. They haven't really put any money into this unit. And the other thing I wanted to mention here is that some people don't start looking for a management company until they close escrow. And just like you look for your loan officer before you go into escrow. Right. You need you need to be qualified on a loan before you can put something under contract. I would just, as soon as you go into escrow, it's usually a 30 to 45 day, depending upon how large the transaction is. That's when you should start interviewing management companies. And I would walk the property with them. I would suggest that they give you recommendations on what kind of, deferred maintenance is there. What kind of things would you do down the road to keep the building to keep the integrity of the building in shape.
That's a really good point. Well, I never thought of that, and I have run across people where they're kind of scrambling to get management because they think it's kind of a plug-and-play thing, but it's not. It can be night and day. And I was on your website earlier, and it showed that you are willing to do a review, a property review, a rental review. Is that something that people utilize from your company very much?
Sure. A lot of people meet us that way, and we go out and we walk the property with them, give them our ideas. I think that in any good business relationship, you need to have trust, and you need to trust the people, and they'll do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it.
Right.
So you need to go out and get to know people a little bit before you jump into bed with them, so to speak.
Right. So make sure they have your website right so they can take a look at that. It's C360.com, is that correct? 360,
C360. The company is called Concept 360 Property Management.
Okay.
There's a website that has that name too, but it's pretty long.
Yeah.
So you can go to C360PM.com.
PM. Okay. PM.com, and that will kind of give you give the audience a way to connect with you, and then if they needed a property review, that's a good way to find out more.
Perfect. That worked great. Yes, indeed.
Good. Tell me a little bit about some of these case studies you've had where you've walked into a property and you can immediately see, well, here's how I can help this situation work right away. Because I know as an investor, a lot of times those things aren't apparent.
Right. Sometimes what I like to do is they have a home inspector or they'll have some sort of inspector go see the property. I like to be there when the inspector is there so I can speak with the inspector, make sure that they're not getting, dinged by the inspector. But if it's, you want to make sure that if you don't want water leaking in from the outside or water coming in from the inside to the outside.
Right.
So water is a big issue. We don't have as many roof issues in California as some other places. But eventually you're going to need a new roof because it gets so dried out that it cracks. So you need to look at the roof, and then you need to look at the piping on the inside. Is there corrosion in the pipes? Is there copper attached to galvanized that's corroding away? There's certain things that you need to be aware of. So the other thing is everybody's got their own style of ownership. Some people they're going to be a landlord, and they can get 4 or 5 properties and be a landlord. If you really want to be an investor, you need to find a property manager that you can trust, that you can work with, so that while you're making money and making more money, you say, geez, I've got the confidence now, I can go get some more properties because I've got somebody on my team that I trust and that can help me get where I want to go.
Yeah,
So
that's a very good point. Well, I think that theme has been coming up quite a bit, especially when we started Phoebe, is that, we have a motto that investing is a team sport, because there's no way that you can be good at all these things. And when you have a team built where you have a strong management arm, that really enables you to go out and get more and more investments and grow your portfolio.
right, and the other thing that just one of my philosophies is that as a property manager, we work for you. We work for the investor. We take our direction from you.
Mm-hmm.
But we like to collaborate with you and give you advice that you can then make the decision. But we've been doing it so long that we can point some things out that you might not have noticed. And that really helps people be successful with their investments.
Right. What are some other hints you might want to give, or some tips you want to give an investor how to best work with a management company? We talked a little bit about communication. Are there any other things about maybe that in more detail, or other things that come to mind as, hey, now we've got a really good partnership with our investor or with our client? What are some of the things you could kind of tell our audience?
Well, I would suggest finding it, whether it's me or whether it's Concept 360 or some other company, but you have to find a company that you can trust. Because if you micromanage every single detail, I've had people that owned a 4-unit property that they were calling 3 or 4 times a week, and I've had somebody that has a 16-unit property. He owned 2 of them. He was a doctor. He never called us, and when we'd call him and say, this is going to be over $500, he'd say, oh, please, just take care of it. You got this. I trust you. So I ended up giving the 4-unit back to the investor, because the cost benefit analysis, I was spending more time on a 4-unit I was spending more time on that disproportionately to anything else in my portfolio.
Right.
So it's just, you have to work with somebody you trust, because if you trust them, I always tell people it's sort of like learning to dance with somebody. In the very beginning, it's a little awkward. We might step on each other's feet a little bit, but pretty soon, if you trust each other, we'll be spinning and doing dips, and everything's going to be fine. But you got to have a little trust.
Right. That's a good analogy about kind of learning each other when you're doing the steps until you're working in flow. And we have a audience member that you might know of, Will. Karen Hall says hello and says, Will, Alan, and Bob and Reed are the best. So there's a testimonial. That's a testimonial from Karen Hall.
All right.
IRA. So those are very good hints about how to work together with a teammate in this sport called investing. Tell me a little bit about the kind of the areas that you specialize in as far as geographically. Now, I know you're in Long Beach, but do you go out to other areas as well?
Yeah, we like to keep it in the South Bay. So
Okay.
we go down we've got some properties in Santa Ana, and we've got some properties in Koreatown. We used to go all the way into the valley, and I used to go into Pomona, but
Wow.
at this point, the way traffic goes, it's if you dropped a bomb or put a pin in Long Beach,
Yeah.
I'd like to be by car no more than about 40 minutes out from Long Beach.
That makes sense.
And with traffic and things, that takes you probably up to the 10 freeway, and then down to Santa Ana, and we do have some properties in Fullerton as well. But
Okay.
fortunately, Long Beach is pretty centrally located to a lot of good investment property.
Right. Well, I just thought about something about, relationship with inspectors and things like that, how because of the number of units that you manage, that you probably have some relationships with certain inspectors out with the city, so how to, what they're looking for, what to avoid, and, how to, let's face it, they have to be kind of a team member as well with your investing, because if you're always fighting, the city, you're not doing what you do best, which is growing your investments. So, I think having those type of relationships that already have been developed is a huge opportunity for a landlord to have somebody like that on your side to say, hey, in this area we have to look out for this, is because this is what they really want. You talked about water intrusion, things like that.
Well, the other thing is parking. The other big issue, especially in urban areas, is parking. So a building will be grossly underparked. So you've got to be able to know who to walk into at the city and say, hey, sit down with me and let's see how we can get a few more spots on this lot.
Right.
And possibly move the big, huge garbage, container and put parking here, and then move some of the individual trash cans along the side. You got to sort of be able to think outside the box. And I fortunately know people at the rubbish department, and I know people at parking downtown.
Yeah.
And they'll sit down and talk to me, and you can do those kinds of things.
We can create solutions, right, and work together. Yeah, that's great. I was also on your website, and one of the features I really love is that there's a client portal and also for a tenant portal. So the communication for, say, if I'm a tenant of one of your tenants and I need to have a leaky sink repair, that's going to be documented. That's going to go through the portal. There's kind of a formal way, so nothing gets falls through the cracks. That's pretty important, wouldn't you say?
Yes, well, actually, it gets even better. There's an add-on to the portal so that when a tenant has a tenant service issue,
Right.
it comes to us immediately in the form of a text.
Oh, wow.
I can send that text, forward that to the vendor, and the vendor gets it within 5 minutes of me getting it. The vendor gets it. The vendor has the tenant's phone number and text, and the appointment's set to fix it within 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's called Property Meld, and it's one of the best add-ons I've come across. I'm really, really fortunate to come across it. And then, under the heading of transparency, the owner can go onto the portal. They can see all their reports. They can see who's paid rent, who hasn't paid rent. And, it helps them because they want to see it. It also helps us because they don't even have to call and ask us. It's right there on the portal, and they can see everything they need to know.
That's great. So as a investor, I know how valuable that is when I can just go in and say, okay, I want to find out what's going on and get kind of a snapshot of what's happening with my portfolio. So that's very, very helpful. Any other things that you want to pass along to our audience out there, to other investors about, what to look out for as far as, when an investment is something that can be turned around, and things that are going to be a lot harder than perhaps any management company could do? Because what I've seen in my years of doing this is that there's certain areas, certain properties where it's going to take too much to turn it around because the surrounding area is just not there yet.
Yeah.
Can you give us some hints about what to look out for and what to be aware of, so that you don't fall in love with some pro forma statement that may or not actually come true?
Well, I just recommend driving the property not only during the day but at night. And drive it. I would drive it right before when everybody leaves to work. Drive it about 8 o'clock in the morning. Are all the cars operable?
Right.
Are they headed out to work?
Right.
Or does the neighborhood stay buttoned up until 10 o'clock in the morning? I mean, there's certain things that. The other thing is, if you won't get out and pick up the rent at night, if you go out and knock on the door at night.
Right.
There are property management companies that'll do that, but it might not be exactly what you're looking to do or looking to where you want to own.
Right.
The other thing is, financially, you need to be prepared for some deferred maintenance, and you can go in and we took over a property. It's being held together by the termites that are holding hands.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It was bought cash. It was bought site inspected.
Right.
It's falling apart.
Oh boy.
So you got to be prepared. You're going to have to spend some money to get this thing to a place where people are going to want to move in. When the building's not creaking when you walk into when you're not sitting on a lower floor, and you can hear the people walking in the building creaking back and forth. Seriously, when they're in it. So you've got to be prepared financially to go. And I think Phoebe is a phenomenal organization where you learn a lot about investing in properties.
Right.
But you need to be able to pay the note by yourself without the rents for at least 3 months. And I think you need to have some sort of a treasure chest of some money.
Yeah, adequate reserve. Yeah.
For things that are unforeseen that you don't know that might happen.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that you just brought up that I think is very valuable. It's kind of that reality check for an investor, because if you're not willing to face kind of the fact that, hey, there's some deferred maintenance here that has to be addressed. If you're not going to do it, it's really, your performance is really going to suffer. And coming from somebody that is has a very honest, objective view, saying, hey, look, I've been doing this for a while now, and if you don't fix this, your building's going to suffer. And to just kind of have that realistic view of, okay, you better have this money set aside or else it's going to be a problem.
Well, and the first thing that people like to do is go in and do the interior of the units. They'll put
Right.
granite down, they'll put new laminate flooring. It looks great on the
Fun stuff,
inside.
right? The fun stuff, yeah.
If you don't paint the outside, and it looks like, I mean, it looks, I mean, people drive. I have one that where people just drive up and they see it and they go, they just keep going. The
Right.
insides look phenomenal, but it needed paint. Well, as soon as they painted it, we leased it right up. But I've been asking them or suggesting or recommending the paint for 2, 3 months, and finally they did it, and it you know, so you have to be able to work in concert with people. You know, if you were working with a doctor and the doctor said, listen, you got to get your appendix taken out, you probably get it taken out because they're the expert and they know what they're talking about.
Right, right.
Property managers, if you trust them, they're going to, they want it to do well as bad, not as quite as badly as you do, but they want you to be successful.
Right, right. So that's another time that we brought up the word trust and how important it is to build trustworthy relationships. And we're closing out the show here. It is now 4:30. I want to say thank you very much to Will Allen from Concept 360 Property Management in Long Beach. And the website again is c360pm.com. And you're going to see both Robin and Will live in Long Beach at the Long Beach Grand Event Center. It's 4101 Willow in Long Beach, and that is on January 25th. If you'd like to go see them, definitely look on meetup.com and look up the FIBI Long Beach site, and then you can sign up there. I want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever is your choosing. But I want to thank everybody for viewing the show and for joining us here. And we're going to be signing off here. It is now 4:31. So everybody, have wonderful holidays, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again. And tell Robin to give her her best. Bye now.
Bye-bye. What do you think?
Well.
All right, fantastic.
We'll tell Robin. I hope she mends well, and then we'll see you down in Long Beach.
All right, thank you so much, Ellis. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
Okay, bye-bye. Damn. Did you watch it?
I can still see you.
So red and just
No, you look tall.
really. The lighting here sucks. We gotta work on that.
Babe, babe.
Did you watch it?
Just shut it down. It's
Oh.
still on.
Broadcasting. Well, a little extra stuff. Leave. There we go.